I'm Jim Collison, and this is the Clifton Strengths Podcast Season 2, recorded on February 14th, 2023. In this Clifton Strengths podcast series, we'll look at the Clifton Strengths for Leaders report, one theme at a time. Today's theme is communication. If you're listening live and you don't see the chat room, there should be a link to it right above me there on our live page. Or if you're listening after the fact, maybe as a podcast or on YouTube, you can send us your questions, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jaclynn Robinson is our host today. She works as a senior learning and development consultant. And join me for season 1 of the Clifton Strengths podcast, where we looked at well-being at work, each theme at a time or one theme at a time. And Jaclynn, welcome back.
Thank you.
We are spending some time today looking at communication, one of my favorites. So I'm excited for this one. I'm excited for this one. Let's dig in with a little bit of an intro. What is communication?
Yes. So if you have communication high, you generally find it easy to put your thoughts into words. You're a good conversationalist and presenter.
Yeah.
Love these people.
I love
I like having them in my life.
I never get tired of it. You know, I've done 6 or 7 podcasts in a day. People are like, "Oh man, that's just way too much talking."
That'd be so hard. But
I'm
bless your souls.
I'm more fired up at the end of the day. Well, you saw we did 4 of these in a row, right? And I was kind of down in the dumps when we started, and by the end I was flying. And so we're okay. We're not talking about me. I want you to talk about me. But we're looking at this in the context of leadership. When this brand new Clifton Strengths for Leaders report. And so, what is the power of this theme in a leadership role?
They spark engagement across the organization through their expressive way of discussing the company mission or client success stories. They just know how to captivate their audience or their employees. Really good spidey sense of being able to read the room and navigate a conversation based on what is going to engage that audience.
Yeah, reading the room, I think, is the key. One of those key you talked about spidey senses. You're not familiar with that. This innate awareness to be able to read without asking in some regards. It's so innate in me. I can't, this is why I have to have the camera on. Like, I can't do it if I can't see you, because I can't predict where you're going. I can't see if the words I'm saying, I couldn't imagine, like, my podcasting would be a 10th effective because I'm reading your facial expressions the whole time we're doing this. I know when you want to talk.
Wow.
I know when there's a point that I've hit that you like, so that then I'd be like, oh, okay, Jaclynn, what do you think about that? Right. I say that all the time on this because I'm reading your body language. Right. And I think those with high communication have the ability to say or present things and then see what comes back. Right. It's also a thinking. We often equate this with the ability to think out loud. You know, I think the chat room earlier was talking about this. Can you add a little bit to that as well, maybe from a leadership perspective, of this idea of maybe gaining consensus because you're talking about things before you do them?
Yes. This comes up a lot in leadership, especially when communication is lower, because we have that Webster's Dictionary version of communication. I communicate every day. How is that so low? But what we recognize with communication as a Clifton Strengths theme is the strand of external thinking and being at their best when they can think out loud or bounce thoughts and ideas off of other people, or help other people find clarity by pulling out thoughts and ideas and just kind of, letting it marinate out loud with one another. So that's a key difference.
Yeah.
Key difference.
I like using it in a room to let people talk and then try to summarize. Okay, here's where we're all trying to go, or here are the things that I hear being said. It's what I do in this podcast with you, right? I heard you say this. Let's talk about it some more. Let's pull it out. Let's get some nuances associated with it. What do you think, as the leaders that you've worked with, what kind of things have you seen them do specifically with groups and those that are leading that may be leaning on that communication talent?
Well, we have our friend at work, Austin, with communication high as well. And many of you might have seen him on podcasts. And he's got that high, and I just love hearing him speak because, to your point, you do this too. It's getting the consensus. What are you hearing in the room? Let me summarize this in a way that sounds like poetry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I love this thing. It just comes out of your mouth like poetry with you all. But a really good way of summarizing it, but then also maybe offering a new question or a new insight and having people really think about that,
Mm.
which just deepens and furthers the
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
in the room. So I've seen that work very well. Or using a story, going back to how they can share success stories or experiences, but being able to share a story that people really resonate with and go, wow, I didn't consider it from that perspective. Or
Mhm.
you just helped deepen my learning because of the story you shared. Uh, and I don't know if that's always, repeatable, because when I've talked to somebody with communication, I say, "Ooh, that's a great joke," or "That's a great story." They're like, "That's it. I shared it in the moment, but I can't just repeat that.
No, no,
That's out there. It's out
no.
there now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not repeatable." So
No.
it's that lived
Yeah.
experience in the moment of communication
Mhm.
I've recognized too when
Yeah.
I work with leaders or speakers.
Yeah. Sometimes it's gone as quick as it was there. You're like,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize
Yeah.
I did it.
What I say?
Everybody's taking notes and you're like, "Wait a minute, could you give me the notes back?" Like,
Yes.
I need to remember what I said. I was just talking,
Yeah.
right?
It's just in the moment,
It was just in the
present.
moment. But very focused, very intentional in the moment.
Yes.
Very appropriate. I mean,
Yes.
at times, appropriate's the wrong word, but, providing
Intentional?
that, yeah, I like intentional. Yeah. Yeah, very
Yeah.
intentional, but maybe not remembered a few seconds later.
Mhm.
When also in the report, so if you for your Clifton Strengths for Leaders report, there's all these that we're just scratching the surface on what's available for you there. There's some great ways to think
Mhm.
about it and how you can the power of it. But we also have a section on hinder. And so how could this theme hinder the leadership of others?
Yeah, well, at times this leader could get carried away in conversation and not realize they've quieted the voices of others in the room, or others who might have something that they feel would be important to share. So, in the
Mhm.
process of over communicating, the ultimate message or thought might get lost and lead to redundancy or confusion or oversharing, and quiet the voices of others in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have found for me, just because I said it doesn't make it right.
Hmm.
Sometimes we get used to being right. That sounds pretty arrogant, but you know what I mean? We do this, we do it well, it comes out. In most cases, it works. But then you start believing in yourself a little too much, and you're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, yeah, no, you should," and you're like, actually, that doesn't make any sense." I've had to put kind of a secondary check in my own personality, like, I know we said this, but let's test this thing before we actually do some things with it. I don't know. I made it
That's a
sound
good
really good, but maybe I made it sound too good. It needs a little, it needs
one.
some,
Yeah.
it might need a quality check, so to speak. Can we actually achieve this? Is this actually possible? I don't know. Does that stir
Yeah.
what would you add to that?
That's a really good self-awareness check. And for people without communication high, if they have a theme like intellection, especially where that's real internal deep
Right.
thinking, those gentle pauses in communication help the other person process.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's not just oversharing, but it can be so much being delivered at once that the person doesn't have time to absorb it if they're more of a strategic thinking individual or an internal processor. So I think alongside I'm just going to check in. Does that resonate with you? Let's do a
Mhm.
quality check. Those check ins are helpful too because it creates a pause for the person to process what was just said, maybe even share it back so that it's more solidified in their brain, and then they can help you noodle through it.
Mhm. Yeah. I've gotten into the habit of saying, let's sleep on this. Like, yes, it
Yes.
sounds like a great idea right now. It'll be a great idea tomorrow if it's a great idea. Like,
Yes.
and I've had that situation here. I've left, and on the drive home, I've convinced myself it was a terrible idea. Like,
Wow.
okay, actually, now that I've thought about it myself, yeah, there's all these things. No, that's not good, and that's not good. And then we reconvene the next day. I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? I'm not. I had them convinced when we left it was the right thing to do. Now I got to talk them back out of it the next day. It's like, it's not such a great
Yeah.
idea. And sometimes they're very gracious and they're like, yeah, I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Like, don't worry about it. No, it's okay. We're also let's spend a little time thinking about four needs of followers on this as we think hope,
Yeah.
stability, compassion, and trust. Where does
Ooh.
communication, where do you think that fits in that framework?
We haven't talked about compassion and hope too much. I could really see it with with this theme. That communication of just being able to hear from the room and have thoughts and opinions and voices just speak out loud and
Mhm.
resonate with that offers that sense of compassion of I'm hearing your lived experience or
Yeah.
I'm hearing what your opinion or voice is. And then that hope piece, because they're such an engaging speaker, they can create hope for what the future could look like or what the future can be through an engaging story or through a success, anything. But
Mm,
I see those
mhm.
two coming out
Yeah,
for
I like
sure.
compassion. I like compassion, right?
Yeah.
It's hearing. And
Yes.
sometimes it's repeating, right? It's
Yes.
I heard you, not just listening, but repeating it back. Here's how I heard you. And I think that's an act of
Yeah.
compassion. I mean, I think the result is trust, but I
Mhm.
think that the process is compassion, right? And
Mhm.
just saying, "Hey, no, I hear what you're saying. I hear this. Let me repeat it back to you the way I understand it." And there's just nothing better than the look on someone's
Yeah.
face when you repeat it back in a way that shows understanding, and they're like, "Oh, yeah," especially if they're people who've never been heard before,
Yes.
right? They've been talking, but they've never been heard, and when you can repeat that back, that's pretty amazing. I think as a leader, you gotta work. That's what you're lo that's the golden ticket, so to speak, when you do that and the the who you're working with goes, "Yeah, you understand me."
Mhm.
All right, game on. Let's do this thing. Through this season, we've been doing report dynamics, trademark. Me. No,
Yes.
Gallup, trademark. So we're putting this together with the Clifton Strengths for Sales report. Just thinking about it, like if I had both reports, how could I use those together for success? What could that look like with the sales report?
Ooh, well, once the sales leader has an idea of what the client seeks, they can put together a presentation or sales pitch that wows. So whether speaking
Mm,
on a client
mhm.
success story, I'm going to keep bringing up stories, they're great at them, or business and customer impact that they've created, they just know how to engage the audience in front of them based on
Mhm.
the uniqueness of that person that's in front of them or
Mhm.
the uniqueness of the organization.
Yeah.
So again, that innate natural sense of how to engage with that individual can really help them wow
Mhm.
during a pitch or presentation.
You hear some maximizer in this because I have three maximizers, three communications, four, but I love to get groups doing more of stuff like, hey, we did this.
Mm,
We could
mhm.
do even more. Like, and then tell a story about how we're going to go, we're going to go and do this and it's going to be even bigger.
Yeah,
Right? I love that. It's one of
it's
my
gonna be
favorite things to do.
great.
Yeah. We're just gonna crush this thing. It's gonna be awesome. So what about the Clifton Strengths for Manager report? We think about those roles responsible that a manager is responsible, putting this together with what we offer in the leadership report. What do you see there?
Yeah. They can help their direct reports talk through ideas, concerns, their short term goals, their long term goals. They have a knack for helping others gain clarity on issues by asking questions and bringing their thoughts out in the open. And then when they're in the open, they and the team member can work through that particular matter together.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where I think the individualization that a manager can bring, small I, by
Hmm.
the way. I don't think you have to have individualization to as a manager to treat people individually in this.
Hmm.
You're just better at it if you do. But I think this is those areas where you talk about a knack for gaining clarity on issues of asking, like, "Hey, let's go through this a
Yeah.
little bit. Tell me a little bit more. Let's."
Yes.
Right, and then I'm gonna repeat that back to
Yes.
you or whatever. Yeah, I love that. Final thoughts as we kinda wrap communication here. Anything else that, or put a bow on this one. Maybe I should say that. Put a bow
Ooh.
on communication.
Gosh, I feel like I should serve it back to you with you having it so high. Um, I love people with communication though because they have their own way of sorting through the fuss and just helping create clarity for people. Um, and so going back to even the 4 needs of followers, stability is another one I think they can do well, because they
Mm.
can bring everything out in the open and say, let's talk through this, or have we talked through this? Let's make sure we're all on the same page. We're even Steven, so to speak, and move forward. But this is one of those themes I have theme envy over at
Mm.
times, because of that ability to uh, just verbalize their thoughts in a way that really resonates with the audience that's in front of them
Yeah.
without much prep work ahead of time.
Well, but Jaclynn,
So,
let's be
no, I
really
am a prepper.
clear. Like your preparation makes me better. It improves my communication, doesn't make it worse, right? I mean, I am nothing without your preparation. I need your preparation to be able. I couldn't do these things on my own. I don't have enough behind the scenes to put enough into this to get it done. And
Mhm.
so I think oftentimes we, with high communication, we need those individuals to pull that stuff forward, whatever that looks like, whatever task you're in. We've figured out a way to
Yes.
make that work, right, in a way that's beneficial to those who listen.
Oh, good call out.
Yeah.
Power of 2 partnership.
Boom. All right. Well, that's it. Let's close this thing up with that. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we do have available now in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths. Sign in with your Gallup Access account, and then upper left corner, drop down the menu. Some of you may not even knew that menu existed, right? It's tons of resources there for you. By the way, coaches, the Learning Center is there. That's where your kits are. But for everybody else, go to the resources tab, type in communication, and all the webcasts we've ever done, season 1 of the Clifton Strengths podcast, all 6 seasons of Theme Thursday, they're all out there available for you. And many of you asked me, how do I get all those? There you go. There's the secret. Get it done.
Mhm.
That's my communication, trying to influence you to get it done. Stay up to date with all the webcasts by following us at gallup.eventbrite, BRITE.com. Follow us there, and you'll get a notification whenever I post a new episode that is coming out. Join us on any social platform by searching Clifton Strengths, and thanks for listening today. If you enjoyed it, share it. Like these, we make these available for you to share if you want to get that done. Like and subscribe and all those other things that you're supposed to do on these social media platforms. We appreciate that as well. Thanks for listening. If you are listening live, stay around for a little bit of a post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.